And good evening, baseball fans, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Bullpen Bulletin here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We are right smack dab, okay, well, I guess technically not smack dab in the middle of the World Series, but we are in the heart of the World Series. In fact, we're even so deep in it, there's a game going on right now. So we're going to give live updates of that one between the Blue Jays and the Dodgers, and of course, recap what has happened this past weekend. A little bit more interesting than many people, yours truly included, expected. But we are going to recap it nonetheless. We also have a series of recent manager hirings to review. Several of those teams that Ricky and I talked about a couple weeks back for those manager openings when we decided which ones were more or less appealing have started to fill those spots. So we're going to take a look at who was hired there. We also have the Gold Glove and Silver Slugger Awards. The finalists have been announced for both leagues. Those are two major awards for fielding and hitting that go out every. We're going to take a look at some of the more interesting races that are going to be going on in those categories, and also talk about a pretty significant snub, a guy who has gotten a lot of attention this year and normally gets the nomination, but this year did not. And then, of course, we'll wrap it up with our Around the Diamond segment where we'll talk about, well, whatever's just on our mind at the time. Topics are starting to run a little bit few this late in the season, but we both have something to share. Once again, thank you all for tuning in. This is Ricky K and Mike Patt for the Bullpen Bulletin here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We're going to hear a quick word from the sponsor. Get right to it.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
And once again, welcome into the Bullpen Bulletin here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. You've got Ricky K and Mike Patt here with you this evening to talk some baseball. We are right smack dab in the World Series. But before we dive right into it, for those of you that are big fans of the show or the personalities on the show, do be sure to follow us on X. You can follow Ricky at Rickinator555, and you can follow yours truly at IESRDMB. And like I said in the intro, folks, we have baseball legitimately going on right now as we speak. We've got the Dodgers and Blue Jays in Game 3 of the World Series. Dodgers currently up 2-0 here in the top of the fourth. The Dodgers currently have the lead thanks to two solo home runs, one by Teoscar Hernandez and one by, yep, you guessed it, Shohei Ohtani. Tyler Glasnow, starting pitcher for the Dodgers, has pitched 3 scoreless so far. However, the Blue Jays are currently threatening with runners on first and third and no outs. So things certainly looking interesting in that one. And it's been a pretty interesting series so far. I think, like I said, a lot more interesting than many of us would have anticipated. Right now, we're tied at 1 through 2 games. We had the 2 introductory games in Toronto. Toronto took game 1 pretty definitively as well. Final score of 11-4 in that one. So pretty strong performance right off the cusp there by the Blue Jays. But then the Dodgers came back and took game 2 5-1 with the aid of Yoshinobu Yamamoto, complete game performance, his second straight complete game performance for the Dodgers. So, Ricky, what are your thoughts on this series so far? As close as you expected, maybe closer than you expected?
Well, I have the Dodgers in 6 going in. There's no reason for me, I think, to change that prediction. But I will say I am impressed with what the Blue Jays have been able to do in terms of making contact, in terms of being able to get contributions from other players in the lineup. I think that's one of the things you've seen is Toronto's role players are kind of outplaying the Dodgers role players. But the Dodgers stars are the ones that are kind of providing more of the lift for them. Like you look at game 2 for LA, who's the heroes in that? Will Smith got 4 RBIs in 2 games. He's like the 4th or 5th Dodger on the board. And Max Muncy, probably again the 4th or 5th Dodger on the board. But you have Toronto's cases. We look at game 1 and you look at Addison Barger having the first pinch hit grand slam in World Series history. Alejandro Kirk, who, as we talk, is continuing to hit home runs and hit one just now. Like he's another guy that makes an impact for this team. Nathan Lucas, Ernie Clement, like that's what makes the Blue Jays what they are, is they don't need the Springers and the Vlads and the Bichettes to deliver. They have the role players do it, and the Dodgers should, but you look at Kike struggling. Teoscar before the home run tonight struggling. Pajes is struggling. The equalizer, though, is the Dodgers, when they don't have to go to their bullpen, Yamamoto is incredible. And I think eventually you're going to have this, probably one of the better pitching performances in a postseason. Well, let's remember Yamamoto before the postseason had a .67 ERA in his final 4 starts of September. And then if you go to October and what he's done right now, he's got a 1.57 ERA in the postseason, 26 strikeouts and just 4 walks. And there was no reason Dave Roberts shouldn't have let him throw that complete game. I'm glad that he didn't give it and pitch Sasaki just because there was an extra day in between. Sometimes it's better off you don't do that. But I think with Yamamoto standing out is impressive, but I also think Toronto getting to Blake Snell and making life miserable for him, because you don't have to necessarily get hits. You just have to make Snell have to go to the bullpen. And getting Blake Snell out in the 6th inning in game 1 was absolutely huge. The Dodgers just do not have guys that can get outs before Roki Sasaki on a consistent basis.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that was one of our concerns with the Dodgers going through the postseason and coming into the World Series is there enough in that bullpen if something were to happen and the starters don't have an amazing go of it? I think we saw it a little bit against the Reds in that very opening series. Admittedly, the Dodgers took that 2-0, but I think we saw some weaknesses on the back end that you thought might be able to manifest themselves in a further future series. They were able to hold the Phillies down pretty well, and then obviously against the Brewers, the starting pitching took over, and there really were only 1 or 2 instances where the Dodgers were even sweating towards the end of a game. And of course, as you mentioned, as we were talking about this, we see Alejandro Kirk hit a 3-run home run in the top of the 4th. So now the Blue Jays have the lead there, and this one in LA. So this is a pretty big one. And if the Blue Jays can keep getting to Glass now, which they apparently have managed to figure out, the Dodgers bullpen might have to cover a handful of innings here, and it'll be interesting to see how they handle that. But yeah, no, very impressive performance right out of the gate for the Blue Jays, especially against someone like Blake Snell, who not only has the postseason pedigree that many people are aware of, but also had been pitching pretty darn well this postseason also. And I think a good thing that exemplifies this is he gave up 5 earned runs in 5 innings in game 1, which would normally be a 9 ERA. but his ERA was so good this postseason so far that only brought his ERA up to a 2.42. So,
Wow.
getting through Snell, I thought that was huge, and especially since one of the keys I saw was I didn't see this team beating Snell, Yamamoto, and on into Glasnow and Ohtani multiple times throughout the series. So the fact that they got Snell out of the way in game one, very advantageous for them. So now, obviously, we've got game 3 tonight. Games 4 and 5, which are definitely going to go to 5, are going to be tomorrow and Wednesday, and then, if necessary, 6 and 7 on Friday and Saturday. So, Ricky, what are some of your keys kind of the rest of the way? We've seen this small sample early, the first two, let's say 2.5 games, basically. What are your keys for both sides as they find themselves, in a very close match going through the next few games?
Well, I think on the Blue Jays side, it's going to be continuing to work the pitch counts on the starting pitchers, because you look at getting the 23 pitch inning against Snell early on in game one. You look at Yamamoto. Even in that complete game for Yamamoto, the Blue Jays got about 20, 25 pitches in the first inning. So they've been able to kind of feel things out, drag at bats out, not make, and even if they don't get a hit, they make pitchers work. And I think that's gonna be the thing is what does Dave Roberts do? Does Dave Roberts get creative? Because there's not really anything creative for them to do. Like Emmett Sheehan comes in game one. Emmett Sheehan, not really a guy I trust. And let's remember Alex Vesia, who's dealing with a personal matter, wasn't eligible right now for the World Series. So you're missing Vesia, who's a big part of that bullpen and a guy you can kind of go to in different matchups. Is Clayton Kershaw going to get opportunities? Like we've seen World Series teams get creative. Like look at the Blue Jays, right? When they went to game 7 in Seattle, who came in? Chris Bassett came in the 8th inning. Like Toronto could get creative and do cool things like that. The Dodgers can't. And Suzuki's not going to go more than an inning. There's no, if being this 3 days in a row, how do the Dodgers use this pen for multiple days? Unless, because Ohtani is, he could be on the mound. He's only gave you, 6 innings tops? So considering Glasnow is probably going to go 5, let's say, you have to get basically 27 outs the next 2 nights out of the bullpen. I don't know how they're going to do it. They're going to do it. And I think the key for the Dodgers is just get these role players going. Like what we're seeing with the Blue Jays is their bottom of the order keeps stuff going. Like everybody is a pain in the butt when they go up to the plate. Ernie Clement just gets a base hit every time. Kirk is great. Varshow's great. It's just different players every night that make an impact and just make you work and work over and over. We're kind of not seeing that with the Dodgers. And eventually their lineup's going to break out outside of the usual guys. But I think the key for the Dodgers is going to be get ahead early, which they did tonight, but they're going to have to be the ones that kind of set the tempo. And it does help them that, hey, you throw, let's say, Bieber on the road in LA. I kind of like their chances in the game 4. And then game 5, you're throwing a kid and you Savage into LA. How does Trey handle that? Remember, all of Trey's starts, I believe, have been at home. So how does you Savage deal with pitching on the road in a game 5 when either is going to be close out up 3-1 or tied 2-2? Like, to throw that kid in a World Series on the road is going to be tricky in of itself.
Yeah.
So to me, it's going to be how creative does Schneider get? Because I think Schneider has some more options at his disposal. Louis Varlin would be one, because he even said yesterday they're not afraid to throw guys 3 days in a row. And I believe him. I think Varlin could go 3 days in a row. I think Dominguez could go 3 days in a row. Who's the other? Flu Hardy, I think, could go 3 days in a row.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe Hoffman. That was something I'm sure you talked about last week. The fact that Jeff Hoffman threw 50 pitches in game 6, it seemed like, and then came out to strike out the side in game 7. I mean, that was pretty damn impressive what he did.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, Hoffman's been one of those guys. Hadn't been the most consistent for the Blue Jays this year, but when they've needed him most, he has stepped up for sure. My keys, I mean, I'm looking at this Dodgers lineup, and game 1 they got 4 runs, okay, decent. Game 2, they got 5. Okay, we're getting there. And even throughout the Milwaukee series, they just were not putting up the big numbers that you would expect this lineup to produce. So I think it's really going to come down to the bats as Glass now finishes off the top of the fourth finally as the Blue Jays tack on another run to make it 4-2. But the bats, Ohtani's found himself. He was missing in action the first 10 games or so in the first 8-ish games in the playoffs. He finally found himself. His bat is back, so that's good. And but I'm not seeing a ton of great consistent production. And I think it comes down to, you talk about the role players, but to a certain extent, I think some of these stars need to also step up. I think Freddie Freeman, you talk about one of these guys. He was the hero of last year's World Series. He needs to do a little bit more. Mookie Betts has been doing okay, but I think we could get more there. And then Teoscar Hernandez, who is again another hero from last year's World Series, he hit the home run tonight. Having him get going is going to be helpful. Because I don't know. You can only put so much expectation and so much weight on the Dodgers bullpen, knowing that it's the weakness of the team. Obviously, if they were to perform much better, that'd be great. But, one of the keys is going to be you're overcoming the weaknesses. And I think the star players production for the Dodgers lineup is going to be one of the keys to doing that. And for the Blue Jays, honestly, I mean, keep doing what you're doing, basically, like you're saying with the contact. I mean, you can't complain about putting up 11 runs, in the first game. Obviously, they ran into Yamamoto, but Yamamoto's been the best pitcher on the planet for basically the past, 2.5 months. So, not many not many teams are hitting a ton off of Yamamoto right now. So, but, with their performance in game 1 and their performance tonight against Glass now, I mean, you just got to keep putting the barrel to the ball here and just keep getting it in play, getting hits, getting guys on. Try not to get picked off at first base when you think it's ball 4 in a count. That's what happened to Bo Bichette tonight, for those of you who have not been able to watch the game. But yeah, just keep barreling the ball and keep putting it in play. And so far good things have happened. So I don't see why the approach should be any different for the Blue Jays there. So that's the World Series. That's your live check-in, and of course, we've got several games left, so we'll see how it goes. My prediction of Dodgers in 5 probably is not happening. Ricky still got a fair shot at Dodgers in 6 here, but very competitive and very good baseball. It's good. It's what everybody wants to see this time of year. Before we jump into our break, we're going to cover a topic that's kind of linked to the World Series, as it was an award that was presented before Game 3 tonight. Dodgers shortstop Mookie Betts was rewarded with the Roberto Clemente Award for the 2025 season. For those of you who have never heard of this award, the Roberto Clemente is a honor that is given to a major league player who represents the sport through character, community involvement, philanthropy, and positive contributions on and off the field. And yes, I did just read that verbatim from a website description. I did not come up with all of that off the top of my head. But this is Betts' first time winning the award. He is the 3rd Dodger in recent memory to win the award. Clayton Kershaw, current teammate, actually, as it would be, won the award in 2012. And Justin Turner won the award. His former teammate, Justin Turner, won the award back in 2022. So, Ricky, what are your thoughts here on Betts getting this award, and right before Game 3 of the World Series as well?
Well, congrats to him. Like you said, the Roberto Clemente Award, one of the most prestigious awards in terms of not only just on the field, but off the field work. Betts and his wife, Brianna, have been doing some great things. Their 50/50 Foundation, which helps youth in LA and Nashville. And Boogie's one of those guys, like we've talked about on the show. You can love or hate the Dodgers and what they stand for and all the stuff. If the Dodgers win, it's a work stoppage and stuff like that. But Mookie Betts to me, and even coming someone from New York when Mookie was in Boston, it was really tough to hate Mookie Betts. Like, he's just a fun guy to watch play baseball. You can tell he does a lot of cool things for the community. Has a great podcast too. Like, he's just a cool guy you want to be around. So congratulations to him. And again, I think honestly, if you think about awards in general, I know people want to win MVPs and they want to win those things, and that's good on the baseball card. But winning a prestigious award like the Roberto Clemente Award, I think, goes a long way in Major League Clubhouse. And it's also great that it's kind of like the Hank Aaron Award, where that every team gets a nominee. So it's really good when that gets announced. I was watching MLB Tonight, I think, not MLB Tonight, MLB Central like a month ago, and they have the announcements. And it's really cool to see all these athletes get honored for what they do in their communities and helping out those in their neighborhoods. So congrats to Mookie Betts, a great accomplishment for sure.
Yep, absolutely agree 100%. Some of the things that Mookie has done over this past year, he donated $30,000 worth of apparel to victims of the Los Angeles wildfires in January. He's also contributed $160,000. I'm assuming that's probably over time, maybe not, or maybe it was all at once. I don't know. He's got a pretty big contract. He could probably deal that out. But to hunger and homelessness initiatives, his efforts include founding sports programs and supporting pediatric patients at UCLA Children's Hospital, amongst many more. We could probably have like a 10-minute segment going down the list of all the things that Mookie has done for his community. And you hit the nail right on the head. You know, you give the Yankees perspective against the Red Sox. Me as an Orioles fan, I also don't particularly love the Red Sox either, but I've just never been able to find myself being able to hate on Mookie Betts. It's kind of similar, strangely, in the non sequitur into the football world. As a Commanders fan, I've always hated the Cowboys, but for some reason, I could never hate on Jason Witten, who was a very good tight end for them for many years. I just couldn't hate on him. So that's the parallel I kind of draw there. But again, congratulations to Mookie. Great to win the award. Great to win it while you're in the World Series as well, to be honored with it before Game 3. That is truly a phenomenal accomplishment for him. That'll do it for the first part of our show. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to jump into some awards and some award finalists that have been announced for the league and some recent manager hiring. So do not go away. You are listening to the Bullpen Bulletin here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clanking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. IE Sports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go. For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the IE Sports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop, including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back to the Bullpen Bulletin here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And we are now at the end of the fourth inning in Blue Jays Dodgers, as Max Scherzer made quick work of the Dodgers lineup there, and the Blue Jays hold the 4-2 lead. And by the way, I do need to apologize for my omission of not mentioning playoff legend Max Scherzer is pitching for the Blue Jays tonight in Game 3. That probably would have been fair of me to include. But so far for him, 4 innings, 2 runs allowed, 72 pitches. So pretty solid performance from him so far. Moving on to the second half of our show here, we have had a pretty decent number of manager hirings over the past week or so. As you guys will remember, a few weeks ago, we went down the list of manager openings. At the time, there were 8 because I believe the Texas Rangers had hired Skip Schumacher prior to that episode. So we went down and we rated how appealing each opening was. Since then, we have had 3 hirings. Kurt Suzuki, a name that many of you may know from recent baseball days, as he was a catcher for the longest time. I believe he was even a catcher for the Nationals at one point, was hired by the Angels. We had Tony Vitello jumping from University of Tennessee to the big leagues, which is not something that happens very often. We'll get to that in a second. And then Craig Albernaz was hired. The Guardians bench coach was hired by the Orioles. So those 3 come off the board. We still have 5 openings left. We have the Padres, the Braves, the Twins, Rockies, and the Nationals still left on the board to be filled. But Ricky, let's go ahead. Let's start with, I believe, chronologically, the first one of these moves here was Suzuki being hired by the Angels. What were your thoughts on this one?
Well, before I get into that, very quickly, your fun fact on Max Scherzer. He is pitching tonight for his 4th different team in a World Series, which are the Rangers, Tigers, Nationals, and now the Blue Jays. The only other, I'm not sure, Mike, if you saw the stat, who is the other player that has played in 4 World Series?
With 4 different teams?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh. Just player? Is it a pitcher or is it a position player?
Not a pitcher, a position player.
Position player. I don't know why this was the first name that popped in my mind, but was it Howie Kendrick?
Good guess, but no, it's a little bit older than that. Lonnie Smith.
I would have never guessed that. And you could have given me 50 guesses. Lonnie Smith would not have been the name to come out of my.
That's why I was like, we'll give you the one. But yeah, that's a fun fact for Max Scherzer tonight. But going back into the Angels, I know Larry likes when we talk about the Angels. Kurt Suzuki. It's not saying that he won't be a good hire. This is to me is a lazy hire by the Angels. Mm-hmm. You had the guy that should have got the job, but Artie Moreno doesn't want to pay him. Artie Moreno doesn't want to give him more on top of the bad contract he gave him. Albert Pujols should be the manager of the Angels. I mean, that's Mike Trout's guy. Like, at some point, you're going to realize that nobody really wants this job because Moreno hasn't been a really good owner. And, okay, Kurt Suzuki is good because he just got out of baseball. So, at the very least, he can still relate to this type of player. But is any Angel fan looking at that roster and saying Kurt Suzuki is going to help us take that extra step? And I think that's what the weird part of all this manager stuff, Mike, and we'll dive into each of them individually. The manager position to me has just been, what impact does it have? Like, I'm looking at these things and I'm like, there's nobody that jumps off my screen and saying this guy's going to change the culture. This guy's going to change something in the clubhouse. Like, That's what you should be hiring. Like, you look at football head coaches, they have an impact somehow. Basketball head coaches, you could debate what it is, but they have somewhat of an impact. NHL, you have to ask Adam, I think, on this one, but I think some NHL coaches changed the state of the team. The baseball way of hiring the veteran to be the head coach, honestly, looks to be dead. Because, like, we even look at people getting interviews, like, okay, who's the veteran manager getting interviewed? Who's the second-time guy that's learned something on the job that's getting interviewed? And to me, that's just the Angel thing to me, is a prime example of it. Like, okay, I like Kurt Suzuki, but I'm not really sure if he's going to be a great manager. Not really sure if he's going to have that impact that you want him to have. And I think that's a problem. One of the problems with the sport is all of a sudden experience is useless because the front office people and the analytic community, and they want to collaborate. Well, when the collaboration goes wrong, we blame the manager. Meanwhile, he's only being told, some cases, being told what to do by the people upstairs.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. To me, this hiring personifies the long-running problem that the Angels have had. They've had the problem basically the entire time Mike Trout has been there, to my knowledge. And it's what direction is this franchise headed in? Are they trying to rebuild? Are they trying to retool a little bit and maybe try to make another run? I can tell you what, they probably should do, but who knows if they're actually going to do it. And I think, Suzuki, you look at Suzuki, first-time manager, what does he bring to the table? What kind of manager is he going to be? Is he going to be a great manager? Is his rapport with the players going to magically, work its way out? I think, kind of to your point about, the management of the Angels, I think they've been perpetually stuck in this mode of just throwing stuff against the wall and hoping it sticks. And so now they're like, oh, well, we've been doing it with our roster for a decade and we've had absolutely no results. So why not let's do it with a manager and see how it works. Don't get me wrong. I'm a big fan of Kurt Suzuki. He was on the Nationals team that won the World Series back in 2019. So he'll always have a soft spot in my heart. The whole team will. And I think he could actually probably be a pretty good manager. He's a very smart player. He's experienced. He was around the league a long time. But is he the right manager for the Angels? And I think the problem is we don't even know the answer to that question, because I don't even think the Angels know what direction they're going in. So how can they know? They probably didn't even know what type of manager they were looking for. They probably just, picked. Oh, wait. We know Suzuki. Suzuki played with us once upon a time, which he did. He did end his career there. Let's go with him. He still knows half of our players. It's fine. So, I think, it personifies the ongoing problem with the Angels, and that's just that they're stuck in limbo. They just don't know what direction they're headed in. And as a result, they might end up having more seasons. And I feel sorry, because that is eventually going to manifest itself onto Suzuki. And there's a very good chance that if things don't work in the next 2 to 3 years, which probably won't be his fault, because we all know that in a team with the state of like the Angels needs, unless they're going to spend copious amounts of money, needs several years to get back to contention. He's going to get scapegoated and with the failure, and he's going to be out, which we know managers are always one of the easiest scapegoats.
Exactly. You have a GM in Perry Manassian who, if they struggle again, he's probably out, and Suzuki's probably out, which that's why the Angels were never going to get a great manager for this position, because the GM position is so unstable with what might happen if they have another bad year. I just think if it's about the money, it's about the money. I don't know that for a fact, but they had the perfect candidate there, and for some reason didn't hire him.
Yeah, who knows? But again, on par for the Angels. And again, really a shame that I didn't see Larry B jump in the comments here, so I'm assuming he wasn't there to listen to all that. But maybe he'll watch it on replay and he'll appreciate it. Next up on the list, one of the more interesting hires, not even just so far, but probably that we will see in this hiring cycle, the Giants hiring Tony Vitello. Now, Tony Vitello was the head coach of the Tennessee Volunteers baseball team for 8 years, and he is going to make the jump from college to the big leagues. Now, Ricky, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this statement, but we see it in other sports. We certainly see it in football. Guys jump from the college ranks to the NFL. It happens semi on the regularly, although I think you see more nowadays like assistants getting hired to take head coaching jobs. And then you see it in basketball as well, guys jumping from the college ranks to the pros. This is a little bit different. Baseball is a little bit different. I think when you look at it, and again, this is just my opinion observing it, but college football is, like, I would say, a step and a half down from the NFL. It's a little bit more than a step, but it's not like massively more. Kind of same with the NBA. There's, college basketball, and then the guys go up and then they hit the NBA. College baseball, and we actually see this, you can see this because you see college players come into the minors right off of the draft, and you see how their performance translates. It's essentially the equivalent of like high A minor league baseball, which means there are multiple layers going there. So is this a massive jump, Ricky? Am I seeing that right?
No, I think it is. Like, it's to hire a guy who has never coached the professional level to jump from college to the big leagues is a really bold move by Buster Posey. And it's either going to go really well or it's going to fall flat in his face. I don't think there's a middle ground here. I get where Posey's coming from. Vitello's done a great job at Tennessee. They have a guy like Drew Gilbert who played under him at Tennessee. There's a way with the SEC that he's done well, that he's a good recruiter. Maybe they're trying to become their sales pitch to go to San Francisco. I don't know. You get rid of a guy like Bob Melvin to bring in this guy when you're under pressure to win in San Francisco. The Giants have not been relevant in a long time, probably since they had the 100-plus win season where they lost the Dodgers in the DS. Was it 21? I think it was the last time they were really in a position to be this competitive. And look, if they get off to a rough start, how are the pros in that clubhouse going to perceive him? Like, is he going to be a guy that's going to go in? Can he challenge a Rafael Devers? Because we know how Rafael Devers handles when he gets challenged, and that guy makes the guaranteed money. You don't. Matt Chapman, Willie Adames. Like, there are a lot of good vets in that room. Now, I don't know how it didn't take for Bob Melvin for not to work. I don't blame Vitello for trying this. Again, if anytime you get a chance to be a manager at the big league level, you go for it. When I heard about this, I was shocked. And that's where I kind of came with the rant I just had about that managing doesn't really matter. Because I don't see how it's innovative. It's different. I kind of like different. Like, if you're going to go different, just go really different. Don't go hire the bench coach to the bench coach of this team, because you're just going off of hoping that you can brain drain an organization, which we'll get into in a minute. But to me, it's about, okay, what is this guy going to bring that's completely different than what's at the big league level now? Because he's got to adjust not only to the big league level, but adjust to the new rules, adjust to all these different things that he hasn't done with before. Like, those first couple bullpen moves are going to be the most scrutinized in San Francisco, but I think the market benefits. You couldn't get away with this in New York or Boston or anywhere else. That guy would not last very long. So we'll see how it works, but in the end, Buster Posey is going to be judged on two things, this and the Devers trade. And so far, the Devers trade hasn't worked out, so we'll see if Posey can get one right.
Yeah, absolutely right. Just a very bold move. And especially, for Vitello coming into a division where he's got the Dodgers and the Padres. Now, of course, the Padres are going to be under new management, but still, a very solid team. And, maybe even the Diamondbacks taking a step forward. At least he's got the Rockies, that he can warm up on, for several games out of the year. But yeah, no, this is going to be a really interesting experiment and really interesting for, Buster Posey. Long time, great player, even going back to his days at Florida State. Ooh, go Noles. But yeah, no, just really bold. And like you said, if you're going to go different, go way different. I had a teacher in high school who used to say, look, if you're going to, though they used the term, this is a little bit extreme, but they said, sin boldly. Like if you're going to do something wrong, do something so massively wrong that somebody can catch it and correct it and then fix it moving forward. I don't know if Buster necessarily has that luxury, but I mean, if you're going to do something big, do something like that, that's kind of out of bounds, just go way out of bounds and take your shot. And then the most recent hiring, which I believe happened yesterday or this morning, I can't remember. My timeline's a little bit off. But the Orioles hiring Guardian bench coach Craig Albernaz, who has managed his way up through the minor leagues and up to the Guardians, like I said, bench coach job this past year. He was a player. He was a catcher for several years. Never made it to the big leagues. Did make it to AAA. But Ricky, obviously, I'm going to talk about this one a little bit. So I'll let you lead off so that you can get your thoughts in there. So go ahead.
Well, again, you're talking about when we look at football and we look at the way people hire coaches, they try to brain drain the teams that they feel are the next wave, kind of like the Detroit Lions this past year with Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. You're kind of seeing where baseball, the new Rays are the Guardians. Everybody wants to take the Guardians coaches because Cleveland, in the eyes of the league, is doing more with less than any team out there. You look at the last 2 years. Last year, they take the Yankees to Game 5 of the ALDS, and the Yankees end up going to the World Series. And then this year, they come from out of nowhere to win the Central. Yes, they lose to Detroit, but still to win a division when they look basically dead to rights at the trade deadline. Teams are going to take notice of that. We kind of saw the Mets hire a guy from Cleveland front office, was it Kai Correa, to be their bench coach. Mm-hmm. So now you have what Baltimore's doing, and I kind of get it. Look, they're a team that has to prioritize developing their younger players, developing the Rutschmans, the Hendersons, the Westbergs, those guys, and kind of getting the next level out of them. Like, that's going to be the bigger task. So they're bringing in a guy in Cleveland that I guess they feel can get the most out of younger players. But when you look at the Baltimore job, I think the Baltimore job would still be more relevant for a guy that has been there. To me, it just seems like you're hiring another Brandon Hyde, where it's, okay, is this new guy going to be the player, that be the manager that is there when they start winning? Or is he just the guy that they hire before the guy if the young players don't work out? That, to me, is going to be the more interesting thing. I don't doubt that he could do it, but to throw this guy, and again, it comes down to this Mike Elias, who we all know is kind of in control there, is going to make that impact. I am not entirely sure. I'm not negative on the hire. Like, again, we'll see what he can do, and Cleveland has gotten some good things before. This guy who's at least been a catcher professionally, but not in the majors, been to AAA. So he's got pro experience. But I just think Baltimore could have used a vet in that locker room to kind of help those young guys, not a guy that can relate to them, sure, but is he going to be the dude that gets him that next level in a division that is extremely tough? I don't know.
Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of this one, to be honest with you. And it's for the exact point that you brought up. We had Brandon Hyde, and it was always understood, I think, among Baltimore fans that Brandon Hyde was the guy you brought in when the team bottomed out. He's going to be the guy to kind of guide the team through the dark years, let the team take some lumps here and there. As long as they're like steadily improving and like showing strides, and some of the young guys are making it, his job is fine. But it was always kind of understood that he probably wasn't the guy who was going to take the Orioles all the way. Now, did he have a very surprising 101 win season as a manager when he won AL Manager of the Year in 2023? Yes, but I think that was the exception, not the rule. I think his peak that you saw as manager was probably more like 2024, where the team won 91 games, was competitive, got to the playoffs, but couldn't quite get over the hump. And then obviously, the fallout that happened at the beginning of this year. I don't know. I think the Orioles had to go a different direction from Hyde. And to your point, I don't know if this is different enough. This is another guy. Yeah, he's got some experience. Bench coach, great with the players. They say what all of the feedback coming out of Cleveland is that he's really good with the players, and that's great and all. But you have to understand the team is not where it was 6 years ago when Hyde took over. This is a team that now has expectations, at least from the fans it does. Whether it does from the front office, it might be remain to be seen. I don't know. But you're talking about a team that it's not rebuilding. It's been rebuilt. You have all of this young talent that you acquired 2018, 2020, 2021. They've now made it in 2022. Some of the younger guys like Jackson Holiday, Dylan Beavers, they've made it now. So now you have a team that the expectation is going to be to compete. And, I know people credit Albernas for his ability to help Cleveland do more with less. Cleveland's roster, you look at it on paper, not the greatest in the league, but they were able to put it together. Even though, they did win the division, yes, but you look, they had a negative run differential. They had, some of the numbers weren't overall that great. And now you have an uber talented team with incredibly high expectations. I would argue that Cleveland entering this year did not have the expectations that Baltimore had entering this year, and probably that Baltimore will have entering next year. So is this the guy to come in and, lead a team whose goal and expectation at this point should be to be competitive, to win the division, make the playoffs, make a deep playoff run? That should be the goal. I don't know if Albernas is that guy to get to that goal. And maybe he is, but I think you're taking a little bit of a swing in the dark a little bit as opposed to going for maybe a more, experienced manager. Now, were experienced managers necessarily lining up to take a job for a team like you noted when we reviewed the appeal of the manager roles? Were they lining up to take a job that's in the division with the Yankees, the Red Sox, and now apparently a very competitive Blue Jays team, or a team with new ownership that has been inconclusive on whether they're actually going to invest and help you build a winning team? Maybe, maybe not. So maybe this was the case of, well, maybe these other guys aren't, lining up to take the job, or maybe they're too expensive and we're cheap and we want to go with the cheaper guy. I don't know, but it kind of felt like we found a guy, we like him, we think he's good enough. Let's go ahead and get him in here, as opposed to maybe drawing out the process a little bit longer. So I don't love it, but at the same time, I'm not one to pass judgment right away. Let's see how he does here, and we'll reserve that for when. I think he doesn't fix the organizational issues, but no manager hire is going to fix any of the organizational issues. Kind of like with Kurt Suzuki in LA, his hiring won't fix what's going on with ownership. So there's that. So those are the most recent manager hirings. Like I said, still 5 openings to go, and we'll see who gets what spot, when, where, and why. I'm really curious to see who takes that San Diego spot. That's a real interesting job to me. I think we discussed that. Now we have some awards that have finalists that have been announced. First, I'm going to start with the Gold Glove Award, which is the award given to the best fielder at every position in both leagues. So both the AL and the NL have the Gold Glove Award. Those finalists were announced, actually, it's almost 2 weeks ago now, on October 15th. Some interesting battles here, but before we get into a couple of the interesting ones, I want to talk about possibly controversial omission. A guy who has been nominated for the catching Gold Glove Award in the American Leagues a few years running, but this year wasn't. And it's interesting because it was his most noteworthy year of his career. Cal Raleigh of the Mariners was not listed as a Gold Glove finalist at catcher in the American League, despite maybe not necessarily having his best defensive season as a catcher in his career to date, but certainly still a noteworthy one. Ricky, do you think that this was a fair omission? Do you think he got snubbed? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think he got snubbed, Mike. I think Cal Raleigh, the problem is I don't think Cal Raleigh is a defensive catcher. I think of Cal Raleigh as the big dumper with 65 plus home runs. He's not a bad defensive catcher at all. But when I look at the finalists, like Dylan Dingler is the guy that you have in for your top guys to catch because he can throw out some runners. Alejandro Kirk, you think of him more for the power and the average. Not a bad defender either, but I'm not taking Raleigh over a guy like Carlos Narvaez. The Carlos Narvaez is definitely the one thing Narvaez has to work on, I think, is the catcher's interferences. He seems to get a lot. That was really one of the big issues. But besides that, I think he's a really solid defensive catcher. I guess you can make the argument, but the Gold Glove, again, it's been real interesting in recent years how much we take big things. It's a great award to have. It's not something we kind of like hold in a high regard like we used to, I feel like. To me, what's interesting, look at the Gold Gloves, to me, is third base. We know Ernie Clement. Ernie Clement's up for a bunch of different positions. He's up for third base and utilities. We'll see maybe if he gets two of them. But Jose Ramirez, you think about a guy that 30-30 guy, but you never think of him as like, I'm kind of shocked that he's never won one of these before because he does do a pretty good job of the hot corner. I guess we've been kind of spoiled in an era where like the Nolan Arenados of the world and the Manny Machados and all these different third basemen that Jose Ramirez never really gets the attention for the fielding side because of how, but maybe it's just because how good he is as a hitter.
Yeah, I agree. And Jose Ramirez, he's just kept running up against, guys that are just really great defensive third basemen in the American League. You had Manny Machado in the mid 2010s. You had Matt Chapman up until recently with the Athletics. If I thought about it, you could probably go down a couple other names at that third base there over the years for the American League. A couple of the interesting things I'm seeing going down the list, technically two different Blue Jays technically in there at first base with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Ty France both getting nominated. Now, of course, France was a mid-season trade acquisition, so he wasn't there the entire time. But also another interesting thing about first base, 39-year-old Carlos Santana getting the nod there. It's great to see him. He's still playing some really strong defense there at first base too. So the veteran still getting it done. A lot of Blue Jays on the list. I think the reason it looks like it's more Blue Jays is because Ernie Clement's on there twice. So that might be skewing it. In the National League, really interesting. I didn't think he was having that great of a year, but really interesting to see Bryce Harper nominated for first base. I thought that was a really interesting inclusion. And I like I like some of the spread at some of these. I like that Ryan McMahon still got the nomination for third base, even though he got traded halfway through the year to the Yankees, but he's still on the NL list for the Rockies. Although let's be real, that's probably going to go to Ke'Bryan Hayes, who's been one of the best defensive third basemen in the league for a few years running. And I like the spread at second base. A lot of guys, names you might not recognize, but guys that had really strong seasons for their team. Xavier Edwards for the Marlins, Nico Horner for the Cubs, and Bryce Terang for the Brewers. Any races that you see here that are really piquing your interest, Ricky?
Well, for me in the National League, the one thing that stands out is center field. I mean, you and I have grown up and seen different veterans of that position. Andrew Jones comes to mind. We've always seemed to win the Gold Glove at center field, and it's seen as a premium position in terms of usually got offense and defense from your center field position. But here in the National League, you got three finalists. I mean, PCA is a guy that, of course, hits 30 home runs, and he's known for, I think, his speed in addition to his offense. But you look at the other two guys that are nominated on this list, Victor Scott for the Cardinals, who seems to run down everything. The third guy, Jacob Young. Jacob Young basically cost the Mets a playoff spot with playing hacky sack in center field and making a crazy catch up last week. So I guess to see him over like a Fernando Tatis Jr., it's kind of shocking that Tatis isn't on this list anywhere because he's got the arm for it. Like he's gotten
actually
much
listed
better
in right field. Tatis Jr. is in right field. Yep.
Okay. All right. So he is in right field. So okay. So that The right field is obviously, I think, the superstar with Carroll and Tatis there. So my apologies on that. But center field, to me, I think is interesting just because of the youth involved, and I guess seeing it's become more that defensive position, maybe more so than having it from an offensive side.
Yep, absolutely. And Jacob Young should have won the Gold Glove at center field last year for the National League, and I will die on this hill. Moving on, we're going to jump over to the Silver Slugger Award. Now, these were just announced earlier, late last week, so not as much lead time on this one. But the Silver Slugger, the Gold Glove, best defensive player at each position in both leagues. Silver Slugger is the best hitter at each position in both leagues. So obviously, there's going to be a lot, the defensive side, there's all these advanced metrics, defensive runs saved, outs above average, things like that. For the offensive side, for the Silver Slugger, I mean, it's your much more traditional stats, your average slugging percentage, home runs, OPS, things like that. And there's some really interesting battles here. Ricky, I'll kick it over to you first. What are some of the Silver Slugger races that you are most interested in that you're seeing down this list?
So I'll take one for each league. I think looking at the AL, it's kind of tough to find a close race. I'm trying to take outfield out of the equation because there's so many outfielders, and I think it's just you're going to start running down different lists. You're going down just the ones that have like set finalists at positions. Shortstop pops to mind because between Bichette, Pena, and Witt, I know Bobby Witt usually, like, obviously his season was a lot different than what it was a year ago. But you look at Bo Bichette, who played well this season, of course, got hurt at the end of the year. Jeremy Pena is another one, got hurt at the end of the year. So you wonder how much that plays into things. I think that's an interesting one. And then the National League side, I'm pretty intrigued. I guess by catcher, because you look at Will Smith, and Will Smith, of course, has had a pretty good World Series so far. But you look at William Contreras, who's been one of the more breakout catchers the last couple of years with Milwaukee, kind of provides the power and kind of the swagger in the middle of the lineup. I don't like that he rips off the Edwin Diaz narco stuff, but hey, that's his walk-up song, so be it. But also Hunter Goodman. I think we kind of trash the Rockies a lot, and sometimes rightfully so. But Hunter Goodman has kind of been one of those players the Rockies can build around a little bit. So I'll say the AL, I'm looking at shortstop, and the NL at catcher.
Well, those are two very interesting races for sure. In the National League, and we talked about this one a little bit beforehand, and I think you graciously let me have it here. The DH spot. It's just not fair. You got Shohei Ohtani, obviously Ohtani, the season he had. You have Kyle Schwarber, who had an incredible breakout season in his own right, and then you had Christian Yelich. Now, I feel bad for Christian Yelich because I don't think he's going to receive a single vote, but it's going to overshadow what was a very good season for him. And honestly, if he had been included like with the outfielders, he might even gotten one of the three. But that's going to be that's a really fun race. It's probably going to go to Ohtani in the end. But Schwarber definitely makes that much more interesting. And you brought up the outfield in the American League, trying to avoid it, but I'm very intrigued. Okay, look, we know one of the spots is going to go to Judge. There's no debate there. He's going to get one of them. But it's really interesting to see which two of Cody Bellinger, Byron Buxton, Riley Green, Julio Rodriguez, and George Springer, which two of those five you would give the other awards to. It's really fascinating to me to see how they work that out, because I think you could make an argument for basically any one of those five to get a Silver Slugger. So that's really interesting to see. I also like American League first base. It's probably going to go to Vladdy, but I would love for at least Nick Kurtz and Vinny Pasquantino to get their flowers for the seasons they had. Both did very well. Catcher is obviously going to be Cal Raleigh. I don't even know why they bothered nominating poor Shane Langeliers and Salvador Perez. They're just there to they're just there, happy to be there, folks. And then, and the National League has some other interesting races. I'm curious to see third base, which they actually have 4 nominees at third base: Matt Chapman, Manny Machado, Max Muncy, and Austin Riley. So that'll be a really interesting race to see there as well. But Gold Glove and Silver Slugger, I feel like doesn't get recognized as much as Gold Glove, but it's still a very impressive award to win. So, it's great, and to see guys and Nico Horner being nominated for both second for the Cubs, just an example I'm throwing out there, is really impressive to see. I think Matt Olson for the Braves also got nominated for both at first base in the National League. So just little examples like that. You could go down the list and find other guys getting nominations in both, is just a sign that you had a great all-around season. We are coming to the end of our show here, but quick update. We have made it to the top of the 6th in Game 3, and the Dodgers have tied it up with a 2-run bottom of the 5th inning, thanks to a Shohei Ohtani double that drove in Enrique Hernandez, and then a Freddie Freeman, who must have heard me talking about him, a single that drove in Ohtani. So now they have tied the game at 4. Both teams have gone to their bullpen. So we are going to see how that plays out. That will certainly be interesting to see here the rest of the way. But we are at the end of the show, which means we've made it to the Around the Diamond segment. So Ricky, take it away with your Around the Diamond segment. Is one that I'm excited to hear about because we talked about it a little before the show.
Yeah, first off, it's hard to blame John Schneider in that spot for taking Scherzer out, especially since Ohtani had got him the first 2 times. You play in the matchup against the lefty, it just didn't work. But again, battle the bullpens, like you said, in Game 3. We'll see how it turns out. My Around the Diamond for this week is around Tarek Skubal. And hearing a lot in New York over the last couple weeks is the New York Mets should make a big move and trade for Tarek Skubal and kind of do what the Red Sox did with Garrett Crochet, what the Dodgers have tended to do in the past. But here's my thing, and I don't doubt that Tarek Skubal would work if the Mets want to use their prospects and go all in with this kind of move. Skubal's a free agent at the end of next year. But here's my thing, and this goes into what we've talked about with the CBA after next year expiring, these teams crying poor that they have no money. Where's the Detroit Tigers in this? If you have right now what a guy looks like going to be a 2-time Cy Young Award winning pitcher, you have an American League that's wide open, where you were 1 swing away from going to the American League Championship Series. You have a World Series winning manager. You have a window that causes you to win, potentially at least go on a run and make deep runs in the playoffs. You've got one of the better farm systems in baseball. You don't need more prospects. Like, you're not in a position where you have to do that. You look at the Tigers' payroll, because you and I talked about this off air a week ago. The only contract Detroit has that's big right now is Javi Baez. And even then, that's not as albatross of a contract as it was a couple of years ago, because Baez has actually done some things in center field to make himself useful. So there is zero reason, and I get Skubal's at age 30, that we don't want to pay pitchers anymore, and we get worried about that. But at some point, as much as we want to look at that, this guy is the face of the franchise. This guy went out in Game 5 and pitched the game of his life, and has done everything you want. This isn't the White Sox, where Garrett Crochet was never going to see winning with the White Sox in his elite years. That's where you trade him. The Tigers are not a small market. We have seen the Tigers in the past with the great Mike Ilitch, God rest his soul, like, spend money and try to win. Why aren't the Tigers doing that now? Why is there no thing of, like, let's try to lock this guy up, extend him, or heck, take the chance that you can get him back in free agency. Take the chance that you can actually win. There is zero reason the Tigers should trade Tarek Skubal. If they do, then we've got a bigger issue in the sport. And don't give me it's because all the big market teams can lock him up. Yeah, sure. You can lock him up. You've got money. You've got a payroll. You're not the Miami Marlins. Like, spend the money. Spend the money. Keep the guy here. Build around him there. Because you get rid of him and you get prospects. Okay, maybe you get some decent ones, but what is there to do? So to me, Chris Ilitch and the Tigers, they got to keep their guy, and you got to keep, if they trade him, that's just feeding into the whole, the big markets get whatever they want. But again, Tigers are not a small market. Go spend money, keep your ace.
Absolutely. I mean, you brought up the Tigers aren't paying anybody. I mean, if you look at their best players, not Tariq Skubal, Riley Green. Riley Green's under control for a few more years. I believe so. Like you said, they've got one of the best farm systems in baseball, so they'll have a pipeline of more young, cheap guys that you can come and have them fill in. I mean, even the small market teams, like you got to pay one guy. Like, and I feel like if there is a lockout, that needs to be the it can be that vague and that specific. You got to pay one guy, and if you're going to pay one guy, it might as well be the two-time sign. Like, what are you waiting? What else are you waiting for to happen? Like who are you? Are you waiting for Paul Skeens to come waltzing through the door? Because that's not going to happen. It's just, I don't know. It's ridiculous. And, it's not just Skubal. You see Freddie Peralta coming off the season he's having. He's on the trade market. Seen Hunter Green. He's listed on the trade market. There are a couple other pitchers kind of bouncing around. I think Mackenzie Gore for the Nationals. He's been mentioned on the trade market. It's like, guys, at some point, like it gets ridiculous. But, we could spend a whole show talking about that. In fact, I think we have before probably. But in any case, my Around the Diamond topic takes us over the diamond and over the seas. Because today I saw a list, I think it was Matt Moderno had of MLB.com. He had made a list of projected free agent contracts. And there were 3 names on the list that I did not recognize because, well, I am not super in touch with Japanese baseball, so I don't know the names. But it got me going down the rabbit hole of the top names coming over from Japan for this upcoming free agent cycle. Now, for those of you who don't really know how it works, Japan has their own professional baseball leagues. They are not necessarily as worldwide popular as the MLB is. However, within Japan, at least, they're still very popular. You always see videos of sellout crowds, and the Japanese are very into baseball. I think they even have a street named after. I'm trying to remember the name of the former manager that they have the street named after in Tokyo. I can't remember. I don't even know if it's in Tokyo, but they do have they even named a street after a former MLB manager. But in any case, there are 3 big names on the Japanese free agent market. That was my cat. Say hello to my cat, everybody. And the first one, the most popular one that has been discussed significantly is Munetaka Murakami. And I apologize, I'm probably going to butcher these names. But he is an infielder out of Tokyo, a 25-year-old with incredible power potential. In 2022, he hit 56 home runs and had 134 RBI. So the hitting profile is through the roof on him. There's also Kazuma Okamoto, who is a little bit older. I believe he is 28 or 29, I read. He's been playing in the professional leagues in Japan for a decade, and he's racked up, I think that's at 253 home runs over that decade. So another guy with good power. The biggest difference between him and Murakami, obviously, he's a few years older, but he is a Gold Glove caliber first baseman in the Japanese Baseball League for the Yomiuri Giants. And then the main pitching prospect is Tatsuya Imai, who's 27 years old. Now, he's not the most prototypical pitcher. I think I saw his size. He's like 5'11", 160. So he's a really small guy. But just this past year, he posted a 1.92 ERA with 178 strikeouts in 163 innings. Now, it's the 163 innings that's impressive to me because you want your pitchers in Major League Baseball to at least, I feel like the goal is always 180. That always seems to be the number. If your guy can go 180 innings in a season, that's really good. Well, you have this guy that threw 163 innings in a Japanese professional league. So that's a good kind of baseline to have as your kind of starting point. He's thrown more than 130 innings in 4 of the last 5 seasons. So that's really great to see. That's great durability. But in any case, kind of as an advance to those of you that follow the MLB offseason religiously, those are going to be the three main Japanese player names that you are going to see coming on the docket. That will do it for tonight's show. Thank you to everybody who tuned in. Quick update, it is still tied at 4 there in LA, so this is going to be a really exciting finish here. I think that one, and now we're entering the bottom of the 6th. Looks like the Dodgers bullpen doing okay so far, although I probably just jinxed it. I actually meant to say last week when I picked the Dodgers to win it all, I meant to say congratulations Blue Jays, because that's kind of been the going trend for the Bullpen Bulletin this year. Shout out once again to our sponsors, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky that's on a whole nother planet. Go to planetjerky.net to get yours today. Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great but promotes and donates to mental health research. So head on over to their website, check them out, and continue to support them as they go on their mission to help in the mental health department. And of course, if you are a fan of the show, reminder to follow us on X. You can follow Ricky at Rickinator555. He's usually talking all things New York sports. Probably not a ton of happy football posts right now, but nonetheless, it is that time of year. _DMB. I don't have a ton to be happy about right now. It's hockey season, so I can be happy about the Capitals right now. They're off to a good start, but otherwise, there's really just not much going on for me. Next week will be the season finale of the Bullpen Bulletin. I cannot believe we have made it since the end of February. It will be the beginning of November when we wrap this thing up. We will be crowning a new world, well, hopefully maybe a new World Series champ. It might be a repeat champ to be determined. And we'll be wrapping the show up, talking about some of the stuff. We'll be looking ahead to the off-season 4 and beyond. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you there as we wrap up the season here on the Bullpen Bulletin. Once again, thank you all for tuning in. This has been Ricky K and Mike Patt for the Bullpen Bulletin here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Have a great week. We'll see you next time, and keep watching some good World Series baseball. This has been a great series so far. We can only cross our fingers that the rest of it is just as good. Have a great week.